I think we cannot vote on anything because we don't have a quorum. And I think there are some things that would be helpful to have a vote for and others that we don't need a vote for. We can't approve the minutes. I want to skip down to lower on the agenda and say thank you, Bob Andrews, for your time on the commission. We've really appreciated all of your efforts, and you've been terrific in sort of helping us learn about the wider needs in the Concord community of people with hearing loss. So thank you very much. You've been a great member, and we'll be sad to see you go.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think the main things I would like to say in departing is I have enjoyed being associated with this group, and which I didn't really know very much about until I, got into it. And I've been very much impressed by how, committed you are, to improving the conditions for disabled people here in Concord. I did come in as someone who had been, working previously as an advocate for people with hearing loss. And I was very pleased to find that, that Megan, who's now disappeared from the screen, that Megan was coming here regularly and giving us feedback on what was going on with the town's efforts to be fully equipped with assistive listening systems. And before I say farewell, I would be interested in hearing your most up-to-date input about that, Megan. I'm hoping that either you and or our new assistant town manager will be continuing to provide updates about progress in meeting the goals that have been set for different kinds of disability, but certainly for the hearing loss, from my perspective. What can you tell us about that today?
Sure. Thank you. Well, thank you, Bob. And it's been a pleasure meeting you. You were one of the, I think you and some of your friends and folks that have been working on these issues are some of the first folks I really sat down with in the community. So it's been really wonderful to get to know you and work with you. Regarding an update, I think the biggest update in the hearing technology space is that our interim Council on Aging director, Eileen Bogle, which I think applied for and received a significant grant for improving technology in the Harvey Wheeler building. So she's really taking the lead on an exciting project there. And I think my other update, which is more than just hearing, I think, is that Jess Porter, who we've all met, our assistant town manager, is going to be taking over the ADA commissioner role in Concord. And so I expect that we will continue to work together on issues, and we met today to make sure she had the most up-to-date information about the work of the commission over the past 8 months or so. And I explained some of the challenges with the audio, and especially in the select board hearing room, and about some of the efforts that are going to be made to improve acoustics. But Jess has quite an experience in different municipalities and has a lot of good ideas about how to incorporate closed captioning in live meetings on Zoom and how to, make meetings more accessible from other places she's worked. So I don't know, Jean, if it's an okay time, but like to formally introduce Jess Porter here to introduce
Hi.
herself.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Mhm.
Well, it's not an official meeting. It's a gathering of citizens, so
Yes.
we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Well, I would like to just say that I am nothing but enthusiastic about the new interim, director at the COA, Eileen Bogle. I mean, I think she's been wonderful to work with. She fully appreciates the issue of hearing loss and how it impacts the lives of elderly people and others as well. And I think that may have been facilitated a bit by the fact that she has a hearing loss herself, and her husband has hearing loss, and she's not at all reluctant to share that information with others. She did take the initiative in getting this $20,000 grant that Megan referred to, and she's planning to use that partly to upgrade the systems that they have in place currently, and to train the staff, to use the equipment properly. I will be continuing to be active, over there. I'm part of a panel that's going to be presenting next Tuesday morning about hearing loss to the seniors. And there were 2 men and 2 women, and we're going to, share our personal histories as well as, discussing, the impact that hearing loss can have upon one in terms of its connections with depression and isolation and dementia. We have, I think, 15 or more signed up for it right now, and yeah, so so I leave this commission on a happy note as far as all of that's concerned, and as I've said in writing, I am quite pleased that Peter is the one to replace me, because I've known Peter for quite some time at our church, and he's going to be an asset.
I
I
agree.
hope so.
I
Those are
agree.
big shoes to fill, Bob.
What
Yeah.
was that?
Those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah, well, they're
Well-
big old shoes, and you're the young guard, Peter.
I'm catching up. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Bob.
All right.
yeah. So thank you, Bob.
And we know where you live, so,
Yeah, and
And-
you
and
probably you'll probably see me in the open portion of the meeting from time to time, and
Good.
Yeah.
We would love to have you attend anytime you want.
Right.
And I do want to officially, semi-officially, I guess, welcome Peter Nobile to our commission. Thank you. I'm really happy to have you on the commission.
thank you.
Okay, so concerns about the railroad crossing. Megan, I'm gonna call you out and just ask if you've got any kind of update on.
Excuse me, but I am going to say
Okay.
good night now.
All right.
All right, Bob.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye,
Bob.
Bob.
Thank
See you soon.
you.
Bye.
Okay, yes, Jean, from the rail update.
Hmm.
So this was, I filled Jess in today about this issue. And it's been a really frustrating experience. The gravity of it, I mean, it has been discussed countless times at these meetings. Peter, if you're not familiar, we're talking about there's about a 3-inch gap at the at the MBTA train station in West Concord. And there were 2 incidents over the summer where folks using wheelchairs actually got stuck in the rail. And Jean, I mean, was there for one of them, and it was part of the rescue effort. And so it's kind of spiraled into, I was new at the time, and like trying to figure out who to talk to at the MBTA was a challenge. We were connecting with Kilos, which is the operator. And we eventually went through Representative Cataldo's office, who brought this issue to light. And I was working through our fire chief, who had a contact at the T, to figure out how they were going to fix it and address it. And so we were told they were going to, it was towards the end of August that it was going to occur. And I had been following up to find out, like, did the work occur? And I mean, it looks the same, but like, to an untrained eye, you know, it's hard to say. And so unfortunately, our efforts to follow up this fall and hear from this original MBTA contact person have been completely unresponsive. And so I have brought it up again to our senior management team, and the police chief Chief Mulcahy is really taking it on. He's been in touch with Simon Cataldo's office. He's looking into the signage, Jean, which I know you had done a draft, which it was much appreciated. And there's a new commitment to address this as soon as possible. To be honest, we were trying to go through the channels like staff to staff for a while. And, but when we're not getting responses, it's like time to go to elected officials. And so it's just been incredibly frustrating that we don't have the right people at the T to help us address these issues. But now I think with Jess on board and the police chief trying to help us take a real lead on it, I think there'll be some traction within the next month, at least on the signage, and hopefully beyond that for filling.
Well, that's really great to hear. Yeah, it is really disturbing that someone could get literally stuck on tracks and not able to move off and in a wheelchair. So I'm really happy to hear that you're thinking there will be some kind of movement on this. We do have an MBTA issue to talk about later tonight. I just want to introduce Mary Beth Barker. Peter Nobile is here. He is our newest member. And Mary Beth, you've been on the commission since the beginning? Or nearly?
Yes, since the beginning.
Oh, great. And we have Meryl Schwartz on as well.
You're muted, Meryl.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. We're having trouble getting connected.
Oh, well, I'm glad you were able to get connected. It's good to see you. I know Janet is in rehab right now. She broke her ankle
Oh, no.
or her wrist. I'm sorry. But she's got a fracture and she's trying to recover from that.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
So sorry.
right.
Is she,
Welcome, Peter. Anyway,
I'm
You're
sorry.
I just said welcome to Peter.
Thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Dean was introducing him.
Yes.
Just before you came in, that was what's going on.
Right. This is
great?
Peter Nobile, our newest member. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
Well, you know, it's funny. It can be, the way to pronounce it is like Nobly. That's the pronunciation.
Nobly.
That's how my
Nobly.
grandmother pronounced it. So we all
Okay.
do the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Mimi, age friendly.
Well, I don't have too much to report since the last time we met. I was supposed to have a presentation at the Council on Aging, but they didn't get their newsletter out in a timely way. So we only had 4 people signed up, and then 3 of those 4 had emergencies that day, so I was down to just 1 attendee. So we decided to reschedule. So it's been rescheduled to January 22nd. That's a Monday afternoon at 2:00. So that'll be a little bit of a focus group. I'm hoping that month to also meet with the Concord Over 60 group to talk to them about the initiative. And I've got a draft scope of work with the MAPC that we're going back and forth. They're the consultants that are going to be working with us. So Peter, this might be new to you. I received a grant from the state to do an age-friendly business initiative. So to be an age-friendly community, oh, and just you might be unfamiliar with this too. To be an age-friendly community can be, it's a very expansive approach. So it can include transportation and housing and urban design and kind of special amenities that it could be workforce development, civic engagement, like it's super comprehensive. I'm taking out one little slice of that pie. Concord had declared itself an age-friendly community back in before the pandemic, and kind of there was a study that looked at transportation and housing in a regional way, but no other activity came from that. So in my initiative, I'm specifically looking at just businesses, focusing especially on the business districts of Concord Center, Thoreau Depot, and West Concord. And we're going to be doing technical assistance with those businesses, looking at how can they do some practices to be more age-friendly, recognizing that they're going to be doing primarily stuff that they don't need the building owner's approval for, that wouldn't trigger historic preservation. So that might be things like putting a doorbell so they can greet people at the door if they're not able to come in. It might be a handle. It might be having a table in their restaurant that's a little quieter so that it would be more accessible for folks with dementia. It might be thinking about turning down the sound background music so it's easier for people to eat there. A lot of folks have been talking about having, as they did during the pandemic, senior hours, and maybe offering that at some of the businesses that might be a little easier for folks. Maybe the business might be a little quieter, might be early morning. And we're looking at kind of creating like maybe some kind of either certification process or something that would let us highlight the businesses that are more age-friendly as a way of promoting them. We're hoping to kind of formally launch this in January, and I'll continue to circle back. I am hoping to create a sort of small steering committee that I can meet with about every month or so to kind of dig into the details, and hoping to train up maybe like 3 or so people that could help me be sort of doing these assessments with the businesses and helping them brainstorm about what are some of the ways that they could be more age-friendly. If anybody is interested in not quite even being secret shopper, sort of being a consultant with those businesses. I'm especially looking for folks that are over 60 that could kind of even see with a different set of eyes in terms of like how they can be more accommodating. I'd love to hear from anybody that wants to serve on that.
Meryl, I think you had mentioned you might be interested in serving on that.
Yes, I would be, very much so. I will try to get to the presentation if you have it on Zoom for the COA. I'm going to be away, but I could plan it if
You just muted yourself.
Yeah.
I could plan it if I'm going to be away for the month of January, but if I knew when it was and could get a Zoom link, is it going to be on Zoom or is it in person only?
It was going to be in person, but I recognize the middle of January, chances of snowstorms are pretty high. So I'll check with them and see if maybe it might be more popular if I do it virtually. So I'll check with the COA on that.
Okay.
So Meryl, maybe I can get your contact information from Jean, or if you saw my email, if you could email me your info, we can stay in touch as
Oh,
it
sure.
progresses.
Oh, sure. Yeah, just if Jean can send me your contact information, or she could send mine to you, either way.
Okay.
Thanks so much for volunteering.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I see Jennifer Brook is hopping on here. So we officially, hi Jennifer, we officially have a quorum now.
I
Yay.
apologize, Jean.
No, that's okay.
I'm really
It-
sorry.
No, no worries. We had Bob here for a little while. But we still didn't have the 5, so it's fine. It's fine. Bob had to leave a little early. He had some family things he had to attend to. So let's go back to the minutes. I sent you all the minutes. Have you had a chance to take a look at those? Any changes, additions? Oh, Mara?
I wondered who's taking minutes for this meeting?
Well, I'm hopefully not foolishly, but I'm kind of relying on the recording. And this is, it's really at this point that we have an official meeting. Because we didn't without a quorum.
Right, right.
So for your information, Jess, we try to be very careful and recognizing the open meeting law. And
As you
try to stick
should.
very strictly with that. Yeah,
That's good. I like hearing that.
yes, yeah. So would anyone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept them.
I would second, Jean.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Oh, wait, I think we're supposed to call people,
Mhm.
sorry.
Roll call.
Uh,
Yep.
Okay, so Mary Beth,
Aye.
Meryl,
Yes,
Jennifer,
Yes,
Peter, I'm not gonna call on you because
Yeah, I'd
weren't there,
abstain
so,
anyway.
and I approve, so the minutes are approved. So I was moving on to the Thoreau Street MBTA stop. Mary Beth, you maybe remember this back in 2015. Several of us, there was someone who was on the select board, and Corey Atkins and I met with the MBTA to talk with them about the Thoreau Street stop because it is not accessible. And it's, there's no way for someone who uses a wheelchair or any other kind of mobility device to board the train there. And the MBTA's sort of recommendation is we'll go to West Concord. And that's certainly not acceptable under the ADA. It's been decades now. And they sort of took it under advisement and said that they would consider it. But they had so many other projects going on. So Mark Galius actually reached out to me. He had made some contacts with the MBTA and also Simon Cataldo's office with the thought about ensuring that there's an accessible platform at Thoreau Street as we approach the 250th. It's not a lot of time to get something sort of approved and built. I think that there are sort of meant to be sort of temporary, but then they do get kind of semi-permanently put in place platforms. Jennifer, I see you nodding. Do you know about those?
I think, Jean, that was something that we were referred to when we approached the MBTA the last time. It's a platform that's made out of metal, and it can be rolled into place when a train approaches. There's another platform that's metal, and that's a stopgap until something more permanent can be put in. I think if we're serious about addressing the Thoreau Depot,
Mhm.
I think that we need a strategy.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that we haven't had a strategy. I don't want to demean the efforts that we've already undertaken, but it's a really big job based on our work, my professional work with the MBTA. They're like immovable objects. And it doesn't mean they can't be moved at all, but it just takes a long time, and you really need to present a defensible argument, because there's lots of other stations that also don't have access.
Mhm.
Concord, in my experience, is seen as a wealthy community that is not as high on the priority list for improvements with public funds and public infrastructure as other communities are. And there's probably a justifiable argument in there, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that people want to come to Concord from other communities and can't visit. So I think that if we're going to really tackle this as a problem, I think we need a point person, and we need a strategy that will that we can assign various jobs from that strategy to people on our committee to help track it down. It's not just going to be our committee, our commission. It's going to take a lot of other legwork. So I don't want to say I think it's not a good idea to pursue this as an idea. I just think that we need a more focused strategy, and a timeline, and we need to be able to set our expectations.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've moved the conversation forward at all, but I worry that the 250th anniversary is actually entirely too soon to expect anything to be done. Although I think it's probably a good hammer to use to start a conversation that's an actual conversation, and not just a kind of like dogs nipping at the heels and nothing ever happens, which is how it feels it's been up until now. So maybe Representative Cataldo could be the person to start with. And I think maybe we just also need to keep a record of what we've done and who we've talked to, and so on.
Yeah. So I think Mark Galius, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mary Beth.
No, I think the other thing that worked against us when we brought it up before is that they said West Concord has a platform which is accessible. And to have two in one community was sort of like asking for the moon. I don't know a lot about this, but I vaguely remember looking into it back in maybe 2015, is that they're under some kind of a consent decree, which has to do with accessibility, which means that there's lots of people before us with lots of pressure and lawyers and lawsuits. And like, they haven't even got to move this very far, even with all of that law behind them. So I think you're right, Jennifer, that this is like really, the ant in the rubbish tree thing, but
So on that note, Mary Beth, it makes me think, so I worked with the town of Lincoln, and Lincoln has 0 accessible platforms. So and they've been trying as well to get some accessibility from the train into town. So I wonder if as a long-term goal, we can see whether fighting for an accessible platform is even is even worth our time versus another kind of commission or another person's time or a select committee, whatever it might be. And in the meantime, we should focus on, if we have this station in Concord already, even though it's in West Concord, can we find a way to get people from the West Concord station into Concord? Like that might feel like, especially with the 250 coming in, that might feel like a better use of our time. And we have the opportunity to be more successful.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just to bring people up to speed, Mark Galius, who's on the Transportation Advisory Commission, has really pushed this forward a fair amount already. He's been in touch with Cataldo's office. He's spoken with Mike Barrett. And he's reached out to somebody at the MBTA. And I will forward to you an email that I got that has a lot of contacts with the MBTA. But Jennifer, I think you're right. It does feel like we're the ant pushing against the mountain. I mean, it's been months. We can't even get them to put in a flangeway gap filler so that this gentleman doesn't get caught on the tracks and smushed by a train. And that's a pretty inexpensive and easy, easy project.
Right.
Yeah, Meryl.
My thought is that what we could do, since we do have, quote, an accessible station in Concord, is to perhaps highlight this need to the 350th committee in Concord and say, and speak with Mark about the fact that that this should be a priority issue for them to come up with some sort of transportation solution for the 350th. And, I think we certainly shouldn't ignore the fact that we should push on with the MBTA, but you're right. It might not be realistic to think of it as happening, in the next year. So, I think that we should, urge Mark to keep track of all of his contracts. But in the meantime, I think we should, have some contact with the 350th committee and say that, we hope that they will, contact the transportation committee and devise a solution for that one event. And maybe we can continue whatever solution they come up with. It may take funding. I don't know what they're planning to do, but they certainly should consider, how to get people from point A to point B.
Yeah. Well, there was the trolley that was summer before last. And seemed to be fairly popular. Jennifer, I saw your hand, but I'm gonna ask Jess, Mimi, Megan, is there a plan to have that trolley again? Mimi?
So Beth Williams and I are working on a micro transit grant. So this is sort of the equivalent of like an Uber, but just for Concord. That would be door to door. And unlike Uber, this would be supplemented. So it wouldn't be a full fee. So we're not quite clear exactly what the fee would be, but it might be like $2 or something like that. It would operate like Uber. You could use an app or you could call it dispatcher. We're writing the grant now. It's part of this Massachusetts Transportation Innovation Grant. It's going to be very competitive, but there's $15 million available. It's due like the first week of January. We're not asking for 15 million, but that's across the whole state. we're looking like it's gonna be somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 to do this project. And the map would be just Concord, but we're looking at extending a little bit, because it's meant to be micro transit, so we can't be, too far. But we're looking at including like Trader Joe's and Acton, that would link us with the transportation networks in those communities and our kind of big destinations that folks want to go to. And also it'd be like the Minuteman Visitor Center on the Battle Road. We're targeting specifically kind of the travel and tourism side of things with the visitors, but we're recognizing that this will be open to anybody, and we are wanting residents to be able to use it. So it would be 7 days a week. We're not sure exactly the hours, but we're looking at something like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So recognizing that this, for folks that couldn't otherwise use the senior van on the weekends or in the evenings, or the folks that aren't eligible, so folks that are disabled that aren't seniors, they'd be able to use it. These, like Uber, they'd be contractors, but they would be driving the kind of specific vehicles that would be electric that we'd run. They'd be handicapped accessible. And they would be kind of group one. So they have like this proprietary, like Uber, where they kind of organize how the drivers work. It wouldn't necessarily be a private vehicle. Like you wouldn't be the only passenger, but you might be, just depending on what the route is. It would be on demand, but you could schedule it ahead too. And we're also recognizing that self-service isn't always so great. So we'll have 2 landlines as part of this, one in Concord Center and one in West Concord. So if folks needed to actually make a phone call from out in public, they could do so. So we're still kind of fleshing out what the details are going to be. What's good about this is that it can flex with demand. So maybe in January and February, there'd only be 2 vehicles. Maybe Patriots weekend, there's going to be 7. It really will kind of be able to flex a little bit. The company that we're kind of partnering with for this is Via. They're already running it in Newton and Salem and Plymouth, and it's been very well received. They can also kind of layer upon it. So right now we're kind of looking at it just being a regular door-to-door, free all over the place. But they can also do a combination of a fixed route. So ideally what we're hoping is that some of our other neighboring communities could partner with us, so we could have a fixed route that might be Alewife to Lexington Center, to Lincoln, to Concord, to Acton, that would kind of almost be our own little bus route. If you can kind of think of like the way buses and the train stations work together, it would be a little bit of a network that way. From some of the data that I've been gathering so far, that folks that have been using kind of public transit that we have already in Concord, it's been primarily folks for medical appointments and for shopping. So we're kind of looking at, most of the rides are probably going to be kind of in that main street kind of corridor in Concord, but we will be able to go anywhere in the town.
Well,
If
that's
folks have any suggestions, we're still in the midst of writing the grant. So if you have any kind of recommendations to things to think about, I'd love to hear them.
I'm really happy to hear that it's going to go at least a little bit into Acton, because right now the ride ends at Concord. So you can go from Concord into Boston or north or south, but you can't go to Acton. So I think that'll be it's certainly very welcome to people who do want to get to some of those spots in Acton, and then can maybe connect with something else there.
We're crossing our fingers that we get the grant right now. This is a twinkle in our eye. I don't want people to get too excited.
Right.
We are also looking at, Beth is working on bringing back the trolley, at least for a couple high demand weekends. So I found out that it's $2,000 a day to get the trolley. So we're looking at some private sponsorships or other sources of funding, at least for like Patriots Day weekend. But again, that would be travel and tourism rather than, some of the other needs that we got in the community.
So Jennifer, I know you had your hand up, and then Mary Beth, and then Meryl.
I was going to remark on the, Mimi, I think that sounds really amazing. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that grant comes through, because it would make a great foundation for understanding how maybe something like if that doesn't work, then it's a foundation for how something else might work. So all I was going to say is that I don't know, we don't have very many hotel rooms in Concord. And I would expect that the 250 is going to draw a lot of people to town on the 250th anniversary, but then after as well, a little bit before and a little bit after, there's going to bleed over. So we also don't have a lot of parking in town. So when you say we don't have a lot of lodging, how much of that lodging is actually ADA accessible lodging? Not very much. How much parking is there? Not very much. How many spots of those are ADA spots? Very few. If you are going to come, even to not just to Concord, but to Lexington, well, Lexington doesn't have a train station. You're going to have to use public transportation somehow. Like, so the messaging throughout all of this, and again, it's mostly tourists, right? Travelers and tourists, is really to use public transportation. And yet, you know, can you imagine buses getting down like Com Ave? Like, I just, you know, like, it's like, it's a little worrisome that, that I do think that our disabled and mobility challenged visitors are going to have a really hard time. They're going to have a really hard time. And I don't know if there's a way that we could advocate for whole parking lots, you know, full of ADA spaces, like that we reserve an excessive amount of spaces than you would be required to have, so that we can accommodate some of those travelers. But again, I don't want to get too focused on just the tourists, but it is something that I think is going to be troublesome coming up.
I believe the 250th, and I've been kind of very on the periphery of that, are looking at some of the big lots, kind of having people park in one lot and ferrying people around. But I agree with you of like, you know, some of those the trolleys that they've got booked isn't really ADA compatible. So that hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah. Mary Beth?
Well, Mimi ended up answering my question, but as a wheelchair user, the minute I heard the word Uber-like, that spoke of not being accessible. Uber generally is not wheelchair accessible to people. So, and I also, electric vehicles are also usually not accessible. So you might want to be a little, have some flexibility around the electric vehicle part. Apparently they haven't figured out, because of the size of the battery, how they can make an electric vehicle that has room for a ramp system or a lift system. And so they're pretty rare and hard to come by. I think some of the big city buses maybe have it, but in general, most vehicles that are electric are not wheelchair accessible.
Yeah, although the 14 passenger vans are can be accessible. We just got a grant at Minuteman for an electric van, and actually permission to split it and get two. One will be just a typical passenger, and the other will be a wheelchair accessible electric van. Those are the 14 passenger vans, like all those white vans you see running around town.
Yeah.
Minuteman on them. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And just
Accessibility.
Megan and Jess too, if we as Minuteman Art can be helpful. On weekends especially, we've got a whole fleet of vans that are pretty much just sitting in the parking lot.
That would be awesome. What these VIA people can do is that they could provide drivers for vehicles that we provide. They'll take our vehicle and they'll do the dispatch and provide the driver. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. Okay, Meryl, you wanted to comment.
I think Mary Beth, you know, voiced exactly what I was going to say in terms of the, especially the trolleys are, you know, they're great, but they are not handicapped accessible, and it's quite frustrating. You know, if you use any sort of device, you're really stuck. Even if you can get onto it, you know, where are you going to go when you get off? You know, it's you know, it's really a problem. But the idea of of using Minuteman Arc's handicapped accessible transportation is just, that would be just, opening up a whole new world, I think, for
Well,
us.
we really want to partner with the community and with the town. So, Jennifer,
Would this all started with conversation about the Thoreau Depot? And just to bring it back around, I wonder, and this feels like a much more productive conversation with actual solutions that are hanging out there and low hanging fruit, we could actually be effective in a short period of time. So again, it's not that I want to ignore the elephant, but the elephant's really heavy and I don't know if we're going to be able to move it. And if it's an active and important place to put our energy as a commission. So I'm just wondering out loud if it's an issue that we should remove from our agenda in the future, unless there's something more specific that this commission can contribute to. So I don't know if that's a rhetorical question or not, but I think I just want to go on the record as asking it.
okay.
Well, it all seems to hang on whether or not Mimi is fortunate enough to get the grant. And then, because if not, then I don't see that this would go anywhere in terms of this service, right?
Yeah. Well, if we have a trolley like the one that was used summer before last, that was accessible.
That was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that would help for some pretty short windows, but certainly be a help. So in
Still need
terms
money.
of the request from Mark Galius, he has not gotten the TAC significantly involved in this yet. He would love to have us as a commission send a letter of support for an accessible platform at the road depot. And I mean, it seems like that's a pretty small ask. I'm happy to write a letter and send it. And I agree. I don't see something really happening and a platform in place for 2025, but maybe if there's some push on this from a variety of sources, maybe there would be one that would be there by 2028 or at some point to help with accessibility. Peter.
Can I ask a quick question? And this may be totally naive, and I should probably know this. Is there an accessibility master plan for the town? Do we have a master plan that looks broadly at accessibility around town and has lists projects and prioritizes them? And the reason I'm asking is that, people in Concord are very competitive. If it turns out we're getting like a C-, then that will potentially motivate people to get more involved and behind projects. But I think that's a question. Is that part of a master plan for the town or not yet?
Yeah, Jennifer.
This commission talked about doing a master plan for the town for accessibility a couple of years ago. And one of the things that I remember from that conversation is, and again, this is partially based on my personal experience, is that there's a couple of ways to go about it, namely two. One is that you hire an outside consultant to come in and do data collection across the board. And the other is one that is a self-evaluation. And so neither one of those, one being expensive and two being hard to get all the wagons circled in the town, moved anywhere. Jean, I don't remember actually really pushing very hard on that at the time. And I think one of the initiatives that came out of that in this commission was a smaller version, which was more of a downtown retail and services survey. And that's something that's ongoing now, where commission members basically have gone out to individual business owners and establishments in town, and just looking at both the operational and the physical conditions that allow for or deny accessibility.
Gotcha.
And that's where it's gone. So I think the short answer for that from this commission is no, there is no such master plan in place. And would this commission like one? Abso-stinking-lutely. Would we like one?
Oh, yes, yes. I think the only piece that the town has really, looked at because they had to, is the DPW plan for making roads and sidewalks and such accessible. But that's really the only thing. Unless
I mean-
Megan,
Yeah,
something
I'm really
else.
not trying to like throw a wrench into the works here. I'm just noticing, the only part of the reason I ask is that Bob mentioned, Bob and I are both members of First Parish, and I'm sitting on the Wright Tavern trust, and we're trying to get a new entrance built on the Monument Square side that's fully accessible. And I cannot tell you the kind of crickets we get when we mention accessibility. Like,
Mm.
don't you already have an accessible door on the other side? So there's a general, I mean, I know there's a lack of awareness generally about accessibility, but it would be really interesting to find some way to motivate people. If we really aren't doing very well as a town, that's not, that's embarrassing. It's, if nothing else. So
Yeah,
maybe I
Well-
should, it'd be great to, for instance, get a proposal from a consultant. How much is it going to cost? $25,000, $50,000, and then,
Mhm.
take that to a bunch of wealthy Concordians and say, look,
Mhm.
this is an easy check for you to write. Would you pay for an accessibility study for the town?
Probably more like $150,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be truthful, that's probably
Yeah.
the ballpark that we would be in to get enough information that would be really useful for
Useful.
making decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, Peter, that's a good idea. Is that something, Jean, that our commission, because I think Peter's on the nose with regards to an inventory of sorts, so that we can
Right.
prioritize instead of being reactionary.
Right.
And this might also help with Mimi's efforts too, in regards to the, downtown businesses. And is it something that our commission can make a proposal to the select board for? I mean, I'm not sure of the route that that kind of initiative would go through.
Well, yes, we certainly can make an appeal to the select board. We can ask to have a warrant article at town meeting, or, like tonight at, what is it, 7 till however late. The finance committee is meeting to talk about the financial plan for the next 5 years. So, that would be a place to just sort of throw something like that out there. And, think about having that. Megan, did you have a comment?
Another avenue, I think, once you have an idea scoped out, what would this plan entail? And I think like the initial research of cost, which Jennifer, that is more than I thought. So that's good. This commission is such a wealth of information. Then when you have something kind of teed up and we're behind on having a transition plan and grant opportunities come in, then we could go for even a partial funding. I'm finding, a struggle can be these grant opportunities arise, and you have maybe 6 weeks or 2 months and to get the grant in. But if the program isn't designed, and that's what we're facing a little bit on this micro transit, let's like, okay, we have to design the program, figure out how much it's going to cost, and then apply. So I think like the background research of like what is the goal of this plan, and how does it tie into Envision Concord 2030? I'm sure there's overlap there, and like general idea of how much it would cost. You can be prepared, and when we see these opportunities, start chipping away
Mhm.
at it. I mean, Eileen, we were just saying, Bogle just got a grant for Council on Aging. Small, smaller dollars, but like there are opportunities to, maybe kind of move in that direction. And that always helps when you're appealing to the select board or the town for funds, when you say like this is how we're looking to kind of match or something like that.
Well, Megan, if I could offer, I frankly did not read through the comprehensive plan that the town's got. I could do that before the next meeting and at least see this is potentially just part of that. It's probably an appendix to that study. I don't know if that study looked at accessibility, but I'm guessing it probably did, at least in some cursory way. So I could at least see what was done there. And that may be another, avenue of an existing document that now needs an appendix. Or
I was
something.
thinking more like, we say we care about these things.
Right.
And so if that's true, then we need to invest in
Mhm.
an accessibility plan, or explore that. I don't think, I think this commission would know if there was a strong kind of research element about accessibility in 2030. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I don't think there is.
But I think looking it over on a regular basis is something I try to remind myself to do. So it's good reading.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter, if you're willing to take a look at that and
I should probably do
some
it.
thoughts together for the next meeting, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
It-
Happy to do
It
that.
sounds
Carol.
like, to me, it sounds like we're headed in the direction of really, seeing if we should be putting together a warrant for, for an accessibility study, as the goal. Because, if that's, if we need more comprehensive information, I don't see how we can go about it without that piece of it. So I think any efforts, I personally don't know what's involved in putting together a warrant article, but I think that, number one, we should go to the selectmen and say, this is what our thoughts are. And we would like to be working with you, and put the responsibility onto them, at least in some measure, to help put together a warrant article for an accessibility study, because that would provide the impetus and the information for us to be able to look around for grants and look around for money.
Jennifer, and then
Before Meryl, just before we would go to a warrant and asking for money, there's a couple of steps that we need to deal with ahead of that, which is I think what Megan was referring to, and that is we need to have all our ducks in a row.
Right.
This is the commission to do it though, right? So Peter's examination of the comprehensive plan to see what we have already that can serve as a base or a foundation for beginning. So that's the first step. The second step is, before we can even ask, I can identify three consultants, three different consultants that could all give us a proposal, but they're going to ask us, well, what do you want us to propose on? So
What's
the
the scope?
scope of what we needs to be fleshed out. And that's what we could help do in this commission. We could certainly help flesh out the scope of what we need. So we have to figure out what we have, and then we have to understand what we need, and then we'd have to find out how much it potentially could cost so that we can create a defensible argument to then write that warrant article.
Good point. The other question I had was regarding the transportation committee, and whether, because that is really a major issue. And I'm just wondering, have they really been addressing the needs of the town in terms of accessible transportation. And could they have an input?
Mhm. There is a study, if you don't mind, Jean, there is a study that is at the very early stages right now. That's a transportation plan. There's been one forum and a survey, but the Transportation Advisory Committee is taking a real lead role in trying to scope out too, like what are we looking to do, and what is the most important to residents and visitors and people that live and work in Concord. So I think I hope that they are in connection with you all about this study and getting input when needed. I just want to say too, I do have to sign off here. Sorry to interrupt, but I will be back around sometimes, but I am handing the torch over to Jess, and it's just been lovely getting to know you all. And I hope that we continue to cross paths. And I'm impressed with the conversation tonight. And I'm like, oh, this sounds so good. And so I will be, bopping back in here and there. And I want to be, a resource for you all. But I'm, Mimi's here often, and Jess is going to be connecting with you all. So thank you very much.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Megan.
Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to try to wrap up our meeting because we're over time a little bit. So we'll put the accessibility assessment on the agenda for next time. And if the commission is of a mind to say, okay, I'll write a letter in support of some kind of accessible platform for the Thoreau Street MBTA stop. And I also want to let you know the Finance Committee meeting this evening. I'm going to try to attend that, and I also sort of talk a little bit about the town needing to remember they wanted to do something to separate bikes and people in the little park in West Concord, and that they might want to consider putting some money in to be able to do that. Jess, before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. I should have done that at the beginning of the meeting versus
Okay,
the
that's
end.
okay. So hi, I'm very excited to be working with this group. I've got about 16 years of experience in municipal government over a couple of different communities. I've worked extensively with human resources matters. So this committee is really kind of a perfect fit for that, because I deal obviously with a lot of things ADA related within the workplace, reasonable accommodations and things like that. So I'm really excited to now take that skill set and apply it to the greater community. And it's just wonderful to see such a enthusiastic group of people here that really have a genuine interest in making our community more accessible to all in a variety of different ways. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I will be overseeing basically the human services division. So in addition to human resources, I've already been working closely with Eileen over at the Council on Aging. I've got recreation under me, veteran services, as well as community services, which is Bonnie Wilbur and her outreach work. So just really exciting stuff going on. It's day 9 for those of you that didn't hear that at the
Day 9.
beginning, but good stuff happening here, and I'm just really thrilled.
That's great. Well, welcome to
welcome.
to Concord and to your work.
Thank you.
And I'm going to quickly just switch hats and say I want to invite you out for a tour at Minuteman Arc. We're a very big part of the community here. We're actually just the 4th largest employer in Concord.
Oh, wow. I think you're right across the street from me here too. So I'm out at the 55 Church Street address. So
Well, that's one of our buildings, but our biggest building is on Forest Ridge Road.
okay.
So I'll be in
Excellent.
touch.
All right. Sounds
All right.
good. I would love to
Sorry
do
about
that.
that self-serving piece here. Okay, so our next meeting is January. Oh, why can I never quite see this? 4th. looks like January 11th, Thursday, January 11th. Peter, thank you very much as a brand new member for taking on a chunk of work here. That's
Oh,
terrific.
you're welcome. I hope I
Volunteering. Yeah,
didn't mean to
Yeah.
steer us off into the ice, the shoals here.
that's great. Jess, really great to meet you and have you here. And Mimi, you had your hand up. Was there a last comment?
Yeah, I was gonna, sorry, spell something in my throat. One thought is because of, the town warrant, I've been told that it might be a little too late to get anything on this year's town.
Yeah, I think
That
it
if there's
is.
a scope that's developed, that's something that we could look for some, grant funding. I was just sort of quickly looking at the community compact. We might be able to get something before next year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Mimi. All right, I will see you all on January 11th. Thank you very much.
All
And
right. Nice to meet you all.
happy last night of Hanukkah. Happy
Yes.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all those holidays, and see you in the new year.
Take care, everyone.
right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
all.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.